Hey guys, welcome to another video. Let's talk ADHD, shall we? After mentioning that I have ADHD and doing a little video about it, I received a few messages asking me to kind of talk a bit more about why I thought I had ADHD, how I kind of came to this conclusion, and then kind of looked into it. So I'm gonna try and keep this short. I'm not gonna go into like unbelievable detail because ADHD starts from childhood, throughout teenage years, throughout young adulthood. It's a constant. So if I kind of analyze every single stage, we'll probably be here until next year. I'm gonna kind of just take little parts from each stage and just kind of explain how I came to the conclusion. So first things first, my main light bulb moments and aha moments came after I had each baby. So after Angel was born was my first like, something's up moment. And after I had Iris, I was just like, I'm pretty sure I have ADHD, but and there's just so many things going on that it kind of, trailed off until we moved to Greece, and that's where I was like, okay. So let's take it even further back before my main adulthood aha moments. I had those aha moments, but my mind finally, at the third aha moment, which was after each baby and then after this move here now, was I kind of said, okay, I feel like I have ADHD. I feel like something's going on. I know what ADHD is. I know that in girls and women, it kind of, has a different look to it, so to speak. And that it can be very different and difficult to diagnose. So I have studied early childhood education and do have a bachelor's. We have learned about ADHD. It's kind of in our, to kind of keep an eye out for it, so to speak. So I kind of had an idea of childhood. And so I started thinking. And I went back to a very, very simple thing in my very, very early years. When I was in grade 1, I believe. No, I was in grade 2. So when I was in grade 2, my teacher sent me to be assessed for ADHD. What was happening was literally throughout kindergarten, which in Australia, kindergarten is at the age of 4. So 3 years old, 4 years old is kindergarten, then 5 years old is prep, which is the American kindergarten. So when I was in kindergarten, which is preschool basically for US, I was just jumping off the walls. I would get up, I wouldn't pay attention. I just literally just kind of wanted to do my own thing. But you would think, okay, little kids do that. It's a thing. Actually, they don't. So little kids at that age can sit down and can have circle time, etc. I would refuse to do anything my teachers told me. I just kind of did my own thing. I would also talk all the time, nonstop. I was just chatterbox and running around and full of energy, as small children are, I guess. So this continued happening right into prep, right into grade 1. My teachers were having huge issues with me, but not really telling my parents. Like, my mom would find out about all these things from other parents who were kind of like, oh yeah, the teacher's right, she does talk a lot, or she does this, or she does that, and it was kind of like, what? So that was interesting. Finally in grade 2, a teacher was like, you know what, we need to send this child for an assessment. Minor children's interruption. Someone hit someone with a Barbie, so there you go. Have girls, they say, they're quieter than boys. Anyway, as I was saying, we reached the point in grade 2 where a teacher said, okay, we need to get this child assessed. She's just, completely ignoring us at times. She's constantly talking. She's constantly just getting up. I would just get up and go do my own thing. Depending on what kind of attracted my attention, I just kind of went off. I do have kind of like small memories of doing those kind of things and knowing that I just did things that interested me. I just did what kind of attracted me. Like that's all I kind of remember. I do remember the assessment. I actually do fully remember the assessment. We went there. I remember that there was a specific little blackboard in the waiting area and the date was wrong. And so I erased the date and corrected that. And the therapist, I guess, psychologist, psychiatrist, I don't know who did the assessment. The person who was doing the assessment basically saw this and was like, how did she know the date was wrong? And how did she know what date it was today? Like, she hasn't been to school. She was perplexed by it, apparently. I just thought it was very normal. I was just like, why is the date wrong? I need to correct this. That was my only thought. So I did the assessment and everything. They were mainly concerned with the fact that I used to play with scissors, as in I would play with the scissors and make them talk. So I would kind of create conversations using the scissors as mouthpieces, so to speak. So I wasn't talking to the scissors, like they weren't talking to me. I was aware that they were scissors and inanimate objects, but they were kind of like my puppets in a way. And I would kind of create, you know, stories and things in my head. Like my imagination was running rampant, basically. I was also 2 years above my reading level at this point. So I was in grade 2 and I was reading literally at grade 4 level. My reading was just off the charts. I love reading. I still love reading. I was reading full on like encyclopedias. Age 7, 8. Like I was reading, just going crazy reading. I would read anything and everything I could get my hands on. The doctor, the assessor basically was kind of like, at that point, she's 2 years above her reading level. She just apparently, she has a very high IQ level. They did like an IQ test and all that kind of fun stuff. I had a higher IQ level than normal, I guess. I don't know, like the baseline. I was a lot higher than that. And I had a higher IQ level. I was reading 2 years above my level. I was really, apparently really intelligent and all that fun stuff. And so they concluded that I was just bored, that I was too smart and I was bored, that it was boredom out of the fact that I was too smart and I needed more external stimulation and whatnot, rather than the fact that I was hyperactive. So they completely ignored the teachers saying that I was hyperactive and completely fell into the whole like, oh, she's really smart, she's really intelligent, so there's no way she has ADHD. So that happened. Now, moving on from that, I was very hyper up until we moved. So we moved when I was 7.5, we moved to Greece. Kind of weird how life kind of goes in circles, right? We moved to Greece when I was 7.5. As a family, as a whole, we moved permanently to Greece, at which point everything changed. So everything, like the school, my surroundings, my community, everything between the two countries was so different that I was shocked. I immediately just kind of went, I was this very like open child and very, you know, dancing and singing and all the things. I suddenly just kind of went into myself. I just went inside out straight away, like inside, that was it. I closed up and I internalized all of my hyperactivity. And I know that because I remember all the things that I still do even to this day, like the various STIM methods, which are calming methods. They help with your symptoms, etc. I created then. But up until then, I was able to kind of move and just do my thing without really thinking about it. And then suddenly I was in this classroom, this very cold classroom, this very gray. There was like, you'd think it was a prison more than a classroom, to be honest. With a teacher that would scream like an insane person whenever someone did something that she didn't want them to do or whatnot. So the discipline was very different. The kids were just like, it was a lot of change and a lot of not accepting who you are going on. So I could not be me anymore. And what happened was I was quite depressed from the move itself. The change was really big for me. And then I just internalized everything and I started doing things like biting my tongue, biting the inside of my lip, a lot of internal stimming. And I became very quiet and very kind of like I closed up into a shell. And that's where books also came to my rescue. Throughout my childhood, throughout my primary school years, the only thing I wanted to do was just sit on my bed with a book reading. Now, one little thing that can be linked to ADHD that I know now is that when I would read, I always needed something in my hand tapping the page. So I loved reading, and when I read, I'm in the world. I'm engulfed in the story. But at the same time, I also needed to be holding a pencil and to be tapping the page, like like kind of holding time, I guess, in a way. I had to do that. If I didn't have that, I couldn't read. Throughout the entirety of my childhood, I couldn't read unless I had a pencil tapping the page that I was reading. Kind of keeping me on track, I don't know, I did it. So throughout my childhood, I always felt like I was more hyperactive than I was showing. I always felt the best way I can describe it is I felt very different on the inside than what I was showing on the outside. So a lot of the time, and then moving into my teenage years, a lot of the time I would hear that I don't show emotion, that I'm not, everyone would say, like, for example, oh, you know, your brother's really sensitive, he's really soft and gentle and sensitive and shows emotions and shows love and affection. I couldn't do any of that. I used to, and then I stopped. I stopped because, as I said, everything just kind of internalized. So inside, like in my head, I was super hyperactive. Like my brain was just nonstop. Like I was constantly thinking of things. I had constant, like, you know, ideas and stories, especially the stories. My imagination was just like, I loved creating stories. I loved it. And just I was constantly living in my own magical world. And then as I went to teenage years, that's where my impulsiveness kind of came in, and I did a lot of things that in hindsight was kind of like, yeah, questionable, but you know, it is what it is. Again though, I was always considered the quiet one, the peaceful one, the one that never, you know, I didn't feel that way. I never understood why people thought I was quiet, because I didn't feel quiet. And there were like a lot of other little things that I did, a lot of little stimmings, a lot of just the way I would react to certain things, the way I did certain things. I would study with music in my ears. Like if I had to study for exams in high school, I would have a radio show in my ears. Like I would have the radio station with a full-on show with a host and everyone chatting away in my ears while I was studying and learning things off by heart. I was learning stuff off by heart, word for word, while I had a radio playing in my ears. I always felt, the way I described it was, I needed to keep part of my brain busy while the other part concentrated on my studies. That's how I saw it at the time. I didn't realize what it was. As I finished high school again, I would need like the TV on in order for me to focus. I needed music in my ears at night to sleep, or else my brain just wouldn't turn off. It just wouldn't turn off. It was like, just kept on going. It just wouldn't stop. And just so many more, you know, little things that just, I always felt like I had to stop myself from being me. I felt like if I let go, I suddenly became this hyper person who was like, you know, sitting up on chairs and jumping up and sitting, you know, just everything. A whole bunch of little things that I couldn't sit in one place, yet at the same time, I could, because I would lose myself in my thoughts. And then, yeah, and everyone would just kind of think like, okay, that's just what she does, you know? And then going into university, I was able to kind of be more me, not completely, but more so myself. Like, I was able to get up and move around constantly. I never really thought much of it, but I just did it. The way I sit up on furniture, on things when I need to, you know, I don't want to sit properly. I will do it when I have to. My masking skills are unbelievable apparently, because no one has any idea how hyperactive I am, except my husband. Apparently he's noticed. Yeah, so again, a lot of my stimming that started at that age, like at that 7.5 to 8 years of age, follow me until now. Like I still will bite my tongue a lot of the time. I still bite my cheeks, the inside of my cheek. I will constantly play with my hair. My hair is like my thing. My hair is my thing. Like I need my hair to be, you know, it's my thing. I'm constantly, there are times when I feel like there's a little motor in me that turns on and kind of has to go. So I found that by channeling that kind of movement, that need for movement into doing different things around the house, I actually get stuff done. And another thing that I would always say to my husband, and we just realized recently that it was actually ADHD, was how we would always say, I would always say to him, I'm a multitasker. So I need to be doing at least 5 to 10 things at the same time, or else I'm doing nothing at all. And I would finish those things. Like I would start multiple things at the same time. And because it was just me, naturally, before I had children, I would eventually come around and finish what I started. I don't know like how long it would take me, but as far as like my brain kind of explaining it to itself, I was multitasking. I was doing multiple things, coming back to it. I could never do just one thing. I could never focus on just one thing. It was impossible for me. Like I couldn't. I couldn't. Also, a lot of the time, I was brilliant at doing all my assignments and everything for school and for work, and for school and for university last minute, because why not? I work amazingly with deadlines. A lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, but I would still pull through. I would still pull through. And that multitasking thing really went haywire when I had children, by the way. I suddenly was not a multitasker. Suddenly I couldn't, like I would start things and then I couldn't finish them, and then I would get overwhelmed because I can't finish it because I had to run to the, either one of the babies or whatever. That was one of the first kind of signs that I was like, maybe I'm not a multitasker after all. Maybe I just pick up things and then move to the next and the next and the next, and eventually come back around and just continue going around in circles until I finish what I've started. Also, a lot of the time I will start, and this is now we're moving into adulthood, where I would start different little business ideas. I would start different projects, different art projects, craft projects. I learned how to sew by watching one YouTube video. That was it. I watched one video, learned how to sew. I created a whole bunch of stuff. And I would start something and then drop it like it was hot and move on to something else. And my husband was kind of like, I mentioned this to him, like, oh, some ADHDers do this. And he was like, oh yeah, you do that all the time. You start something and you're like all in on it and you're super excited and you're doing things and and then suddenly you just stop doing it. You just completely, like, he's like, there's no in between. There's no slowly kind of, falling off. No, it's like, drop it. That's it, you're done. And I was like, yeah, you're actually right. Consistency, another big one. Trying to do things, especially since I had children, I found I can really hyper-focus on my children and anything to do with my children. I will do anything for my children. They are my main motivation. They are the reason I get up in the mornings. And I'm not even, exaggerating. It's just the reality of my life right now. I get up in the morning for my children. Anything I do for them. They are my ultimate motivation. And yet there are so many things that I want to do and so many ideas that I have, and I just don't do them. Like even with YouTube, there are so many videos I want to make, so many things I want to do. And every time I'm like, like again, this year, I'm like, I'm going to do Vlogmas. I really want to do Vlogmas, but I know, and this is more me accepting it than kind of, I know that that's probably not going to be possible. Like I'm not going to be able to do a full Vlogmas because there will be the times when I just don't want to film, when my brain is just like, no, you're not going to film. And I can't be consistent. I can't be consistent, not in everything though. I think that's the frustrating thing and what a lot of people don't understand. It's that you can be super consistent in one thing that you're hyper focused on and that it's like your ultimate, your ultimate love right now. And then in other things, you're like, nah, nothing. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. And it's yeah. But I will say, once I had children, I think what happened was everything just got too much. I would get easily overwhelmed. And I would get overwhelmed in the past at younger ages, but I was able to kind of just withdraw. I would go to my bedroom. I would just, I would find ways to kind of withdraw into myself and give myself that peace that I needed to kind of recoup. When you have children, that's not possible. So you're kind of constantly go, 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 go. And it reaches a point where, you may reach a point where you're overstimulated for the day. You kind of, for whatever reason, everything's just become too much. And you still need to keep going because they're not going to stop and be like, okay, mom needs a break. They're too young for that. They're too little. They don't understand that, and I don't expect them to. So I had a lot of different ways of handling my ADHD over the years, hence why I reached the point of 20-something, 30-something, to realize I even had it in the first place. And all of the things that I would do, I'm now realizing I can't do anymore because I have too little distractions running around constantly. Then I also realized a lot of things like living with my in-laws, moving back in with my in-laws, that does not help. It does not help that I feel like every time I open my door, I have to be a certain way. I can't be me. Because it's really funny, like there are times when I completely, like the other day I kind of jumped up and sat on my chair in the way that I just do. And my husband was like, I haven't seen you do that before. Not at the kitchen table at least. And I was like, yeah, no, I only do that when I'm with the girls. When it's just the three of us. I only do that when I'm with the girls. And it's kind of like, because when we're here, I just feel, I used to do it, not so much though, but I used to do it in Australia as well, but I just think he probably he doesn't remember or didn't really notice. Because I always like sitting with like one leg underneath me, no matter what. So I just find myself having moved here and having what happened, like, and I really realized the ADHD was really strong. Moving in here and realizing how mentally exhausting it is to constantly feel like I need to mask at all times. I realized why I felt so tired all those years that we were staying here, we were living here. I was constantly feeling like this tiredness that I couldn't explain, this mental tiredness. And it's the masking. It's trying to look like what everyone thought I was. Quiet and good and just, yeah. When I'm comfortable and I feel okay, I'm a little crazy person. And that's okay. That's okay. Like this summer, I have to say, was especially like I got the diagnosis, but at the same time, well, the unofficial diagnosis. And at the same time, I allowed myself to just kind of be free over the summer. With my family, like my brother, my sister-in-law, my parents. I just let myself be me, and it was okay. And I felt so good, and I felt like I could do anything and I could move forward, and it just cleared my mind. And so it's, yeah. I think the realization and suddenly understanding a lot of your symptoms, it's just like, it's an aha moment. It's an aha moment. And I am now finally learning how to tackle my ADHD whilst I'm also a mama. Because I think I kept trying to handle my symptoms, not knowing there were symptoms, of course, in the same way I used to, and that doesn't work because I now have too little distractions, as I said, running around. So yeah, all in all, so I can conclude this video because it's gonna get long if we really go into how I have kind of, you know, how this whole diagnosis has helped me and how we're moving forward. I think that's a whole separate video. I realized a lot of things throughout my childhood, throughout yet another mind distraction. What was I even saying? I don't remember what I was saying. Oh yes, so throughout my childhood, throughout my teenage years, throughout my adulthood, and my young adulthood, there are just so many little things that, like I was sitting and chatting with my mom, I was sitting chatting with my parents, with my brother, with hubby, and I just kind of put all of these together and realized that I have had this throughout, from the get-go. It's just, and it makes so much sense because there are so many things that I wanted to do and I didn't do because I felt, the way it felt was, I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't get myself to do what I knew I had to do. It's the weirdest thing and the most frustrating. And I kept telling myself that I'm the bad one for not. Yeah. Anyway, I'm one of those classic, I had so much potential and yet never reached it, you know? High IQ levels, ahead of everything. Somehow I didn't manage to do anything with my life. Anyway, this video is gonna be long. So we'll chat about how we're moving forward and so forth with ADHD in the next video, I think. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you have any questions whatsoever, honestly, comment down below. And yeah, I might do a Q&A, an ADHD Q&A. That would be fun. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.